Welcome back, everyone. We are in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma today, and we are learning about a really exciting program to help children whose parents are addicted to alcohol or drugs. And you might think to yourself, well, don't these programs exist all over the country? And you might be surprised to hear that that's not always the case. These programs require a lot of oversight, a lot of work, and in particular, at the community level, it can be difficult to get all of the information that is needed in order to be able to make these programs successful. One of the reasons that we've chosen to highlight this one today is because it came to be in a very interesting way. And that is to say that the federal government, and I'm going to show you a little packet here, the Children's Program Kit. This was written by Health and Human Services through the SAMHSA program, which is a group that focuses on addiction. And what we're able to do at the federal level is bring all the experts to the table, and we're able to make programs that can be used by communities. A community on its own would not likely be able to build this, but the federal government on its own is not able to share it or make it happen in a community. And that's where we get to this story, because they were able to take this information and then proliferate it and use it to seed a new program. And so with that, I will turn it over to you. Tell us about who you are, how you got here, what inspired you.
Okay, Mike Barkham, and the way we got here was through a family addiction. My son and his ex-wife had two children that we took into guardianship because of the addiction, what was going on in the household. And through that, we became the guardians, and we realized that even though loves and hugs and taking them to church was helpful, it wouldn't help them deal with the trauma that they had seen and observed over their young lives. Looked everywhere for a program that we could take them to and or fund or help, and there was nothing available. But through research, I found the program online, downloaded it, and did my research and hired an executive director and began holding the program here in Oklahoma free of charge to the people of Oklahoma and the children to help them break the cycle of addiction.
Now, how much did you have to pay to download that from the federal government?
Zero. And
how hard was it to download it?
It was just about a couple hundred pages, that was it.
So everything we do, by the way, is a couple hundred pages.
Right.
That I often joke that you don't get anything in a 3-page space, but that showcases when it's really useful, isn't it?
It does. I mean, just through the research, it popped up as I was looking for what do you do for children of addicted parents, and it popped up, and I downloaded it and got in touch with some of the people that helped write it, and they helped us through, and there's no charge for any of it, and we were able to fund it for personnel purposes to get it going, but then our vision is to take it to other parts of our state and surrounding states to help expand the program to help children of addiction break the cycle.
Now, how many people do you have in staff now?
4.
And how many children are you able to help a year?
We service about 150 children, new children. We also have a reoccurring group that they come back to weekly. And so that can be hundreds of children that we see week after week after week. But our 4-day program, we run 14, 15 times a year.
And that's, walk me through that. You said 4 days. So
Right.
Is it like a concentrated time and then I have weekly or bi-weekly later?
Right, so we have 4 days that they learn about addiction. They learn it's not their fault, they didn't cause it. They get to unload their bag of rocks, as we call it, their feelings. For the first time, peer-to-peer, talking to other kids who have similar issues with parents using drugs and alcohol. They might be dead, in prison, or just gone. But they're all dealing with that, and there's nobody for them to talk to. So they through our 4 days, they learn to deal with those feelings for the first time, and they get a voice for the first time to talk about, because they live in a don't tell, don't talk world, and now they're able to get out there. So when we bring them back after the 4 days, when they come to our weekly sessions, we just have one coping skill for about 30 minutes to help them deal as they're going through life. because they might go through the program when they're 9 and now they're 13. Different issues pop up. So we'll deal with a 13-year-old coping skill for a week, and we break them up into age groups when they come back on the weekly. We call it a reunion, just to help the kids think it's not therapy.
I like reunion. That's a
Yeah.
good deal.
Right.
Now, do any of these kids ever go to camps?
So, yes.
They do, okay.
We don't have a camp. We call our program a camp just so the kids will not think they're going to therapy.
Right.
We'll call it a 4-day
Spoonful of
camp.
sugar always
Yeah.
makes the medicine go down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
Right. So,
But then some of them do go to camps that are not necessarily affiliated with you, but you're aware
Correct.
that they. What I'm trying to say is they know other kids that are at those camps because they've met them at your program. Is that correct?
yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. I have a child. Actually, I have 2 children who went to camps for children with special needs, physical needs. And I found that those camps can be really powerful because they build relationships with people who, like you said, have a similar experience to them.
Right.
And their differentness is not recognized in those moments.
Right.
So that's nice. So you've got this kind of foundation of support that you've got set up with the 4 days and then multiple touches as they get older. What kind of stories are you hearing? What kind of results are you finding?
So we have an annual fundraiser, and we bring back kids, and that'd be my story probably to tell, is that when these kids come back as teenagers and they speak at our reception, and they talk about how without the program they're not sure where they would have went, because they were carrying around the burden and the shame and the guilt. Even though they didn't do anything, they were a victim, but they don't see it that way. That because of the program, it gave them the foundation to understand it wasn't their fault and they didn't cause it, and they were able to go through adolescence and into teenage years without, probably what could have been an addictive or a use of a drug or alcohol, but they're kind of preconditioned maybe to continue to use to mask their feelings.
Yeah.
And that's what we hear over and over again from the children that come back and tell us how it's helped them.
Yeah, so they're not able to intuit how to take care of those feelings.
Right. Because I'll give you another good example. My granddaughter, who's 12, who went through the program when she was 6, so she was on the early age of when we would do it, gave her dad a book last night, and it was talking about a birthday and things she was proud of, and she would not have known had she not went through the program, but she was able to use words like sobriety and recovery in talking with him on how proud she was of where he's come. So it helped. She had an understanding that she would not have had without going through the program.
Wow. How did he take that?
It was hard.
Yeah, because he realizes his adult issues.
Right.
She's aware of and understands.
Right. At the same time, he was proud that, she has learned and can probably help keep him in his spot, in his safe place.
Kids do that to us, don't
Yeah.
they? For better or for worse.
Right. Right.
They see with clarity that which we see as murky sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, yeah, that's really powerful. So how long have you been doing this then?
So we started in 2013 in December.
Okay.
So I guess it'd be about 6 years now that we've been doing this. It was a slow start. We wanted to vet it out, within our own neighborhood, if you will, with people we knew that had issues, and then now we have a pretty strong outreach program to bring more kids into the program each week or each month that we do one.
So what's your vision? You mentioned that you'd like to see it be shared with other communities.
Right, because it's such a need, and this is the future of our country, children, and
Yes.
and it needs to be addressed. And this is a big population, unfortunately, of these kids that need hope, and they need care, and they need people care. So when we started, our vision was to take it statewide and then to contiguous states, as we grow. And we're at a point now with finally breaking through to the drug courts of Oklahoma to get their support. They have more kids than we can probably see, but they're
Right.
we're building now on that. As of about 6 weeks ago, they're sending us children now, and that will just kind of probably spread like wildfires into the other drug courts to help, because they see the worst of the worst, and they see the kids, and they can direct the kids to go get help. They can mandate it basically when the kids get caught up in the system.
Yeah, and the system is beneficial and a hindrance at times. I know when we were speaking, the system is wonderful for identification, but not necessarily for follow through. And then sometimes a hindrance in those who are trying to be helpful by having so many regulations.
Right.
One of the things that I found working in the federal government is that regulation for safety is important. Regulation for the sake of making rules creates a lot of issues. And so I really prefer the word facilitation,
Right.
which is more about what this program did.
Yes.
Right? It created the opportunity for you to say, wow, this has all the materials I need. I know it's backed by the best in the business, and it's backed by science, but I can build a community based on that foundation. But if you had the federal dollars involved now, tell me about what would happen from a regulatory perspective.
So when we were looking for kids and support, we did talk to DHS and Department of Mental Health, and fortunately the director in Oklahoma said, you don't want us involved.
Wow.
She said,
pause for a minute on that. Like that's a big statement.
right.
Yeah.
And then she went on to explain to me that the oversight that would be required, and I would probably have to add a staff member just to handle the oversight for whatever funding we would get. And so we walked away and said, you are right, we do not want you or need you. What we need is your kids. So how do we work together? So you'll send us your kids, and we don't want your money. And that has taken time, but it's because when you go into some of these situations, people think, well, you want some of the state money, so you're competing with other agencies that get state money. And once they understand we don't want it now, we'll never want your money. We just want the kids, to help the kids. That's taken time, but now they've seen we have sustainability because we've been in it 6 years, and we don't have any state funds or federal funds, and intend never to take any. And so we get more support from the other agencies. So we had a good feedback in the beginning not to go after the money, and we just stayed on that course, and it's proven to be very positive for us.
That is exactly the way this system should work.
Mm-hmm.
Where we get the foundation and put our money in that space, and then rely on community members to be able to take it and proliferate it.
Right.
If you had recommendations to others, because obviously you were benefited by some giving you some advice, what kind of advice would you give?
So for someone that sees a need, I mean, most, as you know, most nonprofits are started out of a personal experience, generally. I know we were told in the beginning to not start a nonprofit, just go to somebody that already has one and try to build it within. But we felt our vision with what we needed to provide was too different to become, a secondary or stepchild to another program. But basically just do your due diligence like you would in anything. Make sure there is a need. Make sure that your service does really supply a need and it's not personally emotional. Mine was, but I did the research to know that there was thousands of kids, hundreds of thousands of kids in our state that needed this. So I wasn't serving a small population. And so I think just making sure there is a need and that you can fund the need, obviously, depends on what you're going to do. And then talk to enough people to make sure that you'll have the support, not necessarily financially, but from the community that what you're gonna go out there with, they'll support and you can keep the kids coming in our case, or no matter what it is you're gonna provide as a service. But I do believe with like what you said, if there's programs out there that have been developed, it's just letting individuals from the private sector probably take them and exploit them, because that's what we do best.
I could not have said that better. that is exactly what we are hoping to help the country understand, that there is, I hear all the time, all politics is local. And I actually don't ever talk about politics in particular. It's just a phrase people often use.
Right.
And really what I hear when people say that is that they want to see the tangible change, the tangible solutions. And I always say you need both. There is a benefit to having a federal program be written because we have the access, we have the knowledge that we can not actually pay extra for. A lot of times these boards, it's just people who come and give their expertise,
Right.
but it's the access to all of them and the expert that puts together the program. But then it has to flip over to the community level, and that's when it does become local. That instantiation has to be from the perspective of the state or the community. And it's that transition that we've not nailed yet.
Right.
And we need both. So that's why I love your program. I have some pictures here and some stories. Would you like to tell us a little bit about them?
Sure. So,
How about this one?
so this one here, so we asked the kids after day one, they've learned about addiction, they learned what causes it, or they don't learn, they're telling us, but we're letting them get it out. And then we have them draw a picture or write a story of what addiction means to them. So this one says addiction, sad face, mom and grandma. So this was mom and grandma were alcoholics, and she was taken away from her mom and grandma because of the drinking, and it made her sad. They're happy, as you can see, they're drinking, and that's what she was trying to show. So this is what addiction means to her, is she's lost her mom and her grandma to alcoholism.
Very interesting that they are depicted happy.
Right. Yep.
This one is another story, a little more intense on this one.
Yeah, so this has to do with, obviously, drugs and alcohol again, fighting, someone gets hurt really bad, guns are involved, kids, sad faces, guns, and then jail time. And I believe this is the child visiting with a sad face, again, her mom or dad in jail. And we heard a lot of these stories about, I wish I could see my mom and dad, they're in prison, or they're dead, or they're gone. And that's where most of the feelings that they've not been able to express come out. It's sad, but it's healthy for them to finally get it out and share. So sharing is a big part of our program, sharing with their peers.
Yeah, so why don't we close with that? How is it, because you were telling me you do less with adult to child therapy, which I love. You do
Right.
more peer-to-peer therapy.
Right.
Most people have never heard of that. And I have to imagine that many people would say, so how does a 7-year-old talk to another 7-year-old?
Right.
Right? But these are kids who are, much like your granddaughter, wise beyond their years.
Right. Oh yeah, they've
Unfairly so, but they have...
We use the term parentified, meaning they've had to take care of themselves at such a young age because the parents aren't involved. The parents might be there or they might not be there. They're in and out of their lives if they're at best, and so they tend to take care of themselves or their younger siblings or whatnot. I lost my train of thought. What was the
Peer-to-peer.
peer-to-peer? So kids don't necessarily open up with adult counseling, what we've found. And the peer-to-peer, when you get these kids together in the room and they learn that they're similar and they're sharing, and the first kid that shares an unfortunate experience like this, then they all tend to pile on and open up because they're bursting to get that out of them. And now that it's been the first place they've been able to share, they can't go to their baseball team or the football team or even their church or whatever and talk about my dad's an alcoholic and my grandma's in prison and my uncle died. That's just not things you talk about in a normal social, well, it's not normal, but in any kind of social setting. But in a peer-to-peer, where they're all similarly situated, they feel the freedom to discuss that. And that's a huge part of their healing on their trauma, is to talk and understand that they're not alone now.
Yeah.
They finally understand, hey, there's a bunch of other people just like me, and they hadn't heard that before.
It's normalized.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, what a gift you have given all of them. I'm so sorry that your grandchildren have had to go through this.
Right,
And yet, out of that, all these children have been helped.
right.
It's an interesting full spectrum story. Well, thank you for joining us,
Yeah, thank you.
and thank you, everyone.